quite late, in fact. In fact, he wasn't even on it until he became president, and it seemed like a good idea once the Civil War broke out. And there were a lot of other people that had a lot more to do with building the movement that eventually, one way or another, led to the Civil War and to 500,000 people dying and to slavery sort of being abolished 100 years later. There was a little civil war in the state of Kansas, actually, just before the big one, and it was all fought entirely by volunteers. And there was a race to settle the freshly stolen state, and a race to decide what it should look like. And there were people who had very different ideas about what it should look like. And among the people that were involved with this abolitionist movement out there was a minister by the name of Beecher, and Beecher would he was known locally as a minister, but better known internationally as the designer of the Sharps rifle, and state-of-the-art rifle, very accurate. And he at the time, and he saw his gun designing activities, like any true American, as a divine calling. And so he shipped his guns out to the abolitionists in Kansas free of charge in large wooden crates that were marked Bibles. And this way they could kind of get under the radar and arrive there more efficiently. He probably put some Bibles in there too, I imagine. So his guns naturally became known as Beecher's Bibles. And people involved with this movement were hanged for as terrorists, and it's an interesting thing. Just a couple of years after they hang these guys for terrorists, and they're going into battle, singing songs about them. But of course, if you believe in something enough to fight for it, you're a fanatic or a terrorist, unless the government tells you to do it, in which case you're a patriot. That's the name of the game.
When you resist.
Owen Brown was an abolitionist. John was Owen's son. He grew up in New England. He was born in Torrington. John Brown was a tanner and a man of many skills. He stood up for the workers who toiled in the mills. He stood up for the Indians. He stood up for the women, for the oppressed and the exploited. This good man stood with them. So when Kansas was bleeding, he went and joined the fray. If the slave trade won in Kansas, the slave trade would have to pay. Riding on the Kansas prairie with a fine and loyal band. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. With 2,000 of New England's best and bravest sons, Captain Brown fought in Kansas with a Bible and a gun. When free Lawrence was on fire, lighting up the night, the border ruffians would flee. John Brown would stand and fight. Lincoln called him a fanatic, and he was a Christian who thought you should do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. Christ said, love your neighbor, and if your neighbor's held in slavery, he was one who felt his duty was to fight to set them free. Riding on the Kansas prairie with a fine and loyal band. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. He drove the slave trade out of Kansas, then went to bordering Missouri. Raided the plantations, no compromise, said he. his family lying dead. They questioned him for hours as he lay there and bled. They hanged him on the gallows, they laid him in his grave. John Brown was a Christian and he died to free the slave. Riding on the Kansas prairie with a fine and loyal band. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. Glory, hallelujah. Beecher's Bible in his hand. Well, there was a wonderful songwriter and